Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic today. Let's do it. What's a creepy encounter you had with a complete stranger that still gives you chills? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. A man outside of a bar one night approached my girlfriend and me. He asked if we had heard about the murders in New Brighton. We, of course, had not. He went on to explain that his girlfriend had been killed. The next morning, I saw that he was arrested for killing her. I was pregnant with my first child in 2001. Right before my due date, I was obviously really pregnant. I was shopping in Walmart, and I started to notice this woman on every aisle I went on. I guess she was in her mid-30s. When I went to the baby section to look at clothes, she started asking me questions. At first, they were common, like about gender. Then the questions started getting strange. Was I married? Did we have a house or an apartment? She commented on my accent and was curious if we had anyone in the area. I'm from Michigan and was stationed in Florida visiting for the birth. Just kind of odd. I was young, 20, but I was married and my husband and I were both active duty, living off base in a rental house. I just told her yes, we were excited, and to have a good rest of her day. She then started actually following me, telling me her husband was outside the store and they could help me take my groceries to the house. That's when I got really nervous. I told her I was fine, thanks, and that my husband was home and could help me. She then told me they had a big truck and that she would buy me a large baby item. I politely declined, and she was so insistent, becoming aggressive. She then offered to buy my husband a grill since we didn't need any baby things. I was getting panicky at this point because I knew this lady was not right. I went to check out, and so did she. She got out before me, and I watched her race walk out of the store, and sure enough, she and her husband were pulled along the curb at the front near the pop machines. They were in a beat-up old yellow box truck. The husband rolls down the window and says, "We'd be happy to help you with that." I again declined and went to my car. I loaded up and watched for a minute. They didn't move, they just watched me. As soon as I pulled out, they did too. I hauled them out of there, and they were only behind me for a minute or two. I still drove around crying for about 30 minutes, making sure they were gone before I had to pee and needed to go home. I'm now 44, and that is the first and one of just a few times that I felt that level of fear in my life. When I lived in a rental property on the west side of Albuquerque many moons ago, I had a census taker knock on my door. Okay, fine. I guess someone needs to do it. He asked me how many people lived in the home, how long I had been there, etc. Then he asked for my social security number as well as my wife's. No, I don't give my social security number to anyone except IRS, dude. He said, "It's the law. You have to provide me with it." "No, I absolutely do not. Now please leave." Him, "I'll be back tomorrow." Sure enough, he shows up the next day, banging on my door and yelling from outside, "I know you're home. I know you're in there. I'll be back tomorrow." He came back a third day knocking on the door, and I yelled through the door, "I'm calling the police, you psychopath." Sure enough, the police show up 15 minutes later, and he's still standing there with his clipboard. The police take his ID, he gets on the radio and comes back 10 minutes later. "So there's no record of you working for the local census. You will need to vacate the premises." Absolutely bizarre experience. I used to work at Manger in the deli. A customer came up and asked for my opinion. I recommended all the things I liked and was just super friendly, I guess. He ended up calling the store that night and asking for me. The other girl I was working with didn't even offer the phone to me. I just told him I had left. He came back the next day and started asking me personal questions. I was very vague, and then he started helping other customers. He left, came back the next day. I had to get management involved. He was standing like a pole just watching me. I had to walk to my car every night for about a month. I would call my boyfriend, now husband, every night on my way home and lived in an apartment building with another coworker whose husband would literally walk me to my door. Ugh, I still feel like he's watching me sometimes, and this was about 4 years ago. I'm pretty sure my dog saved me from a dangerous encounter. I was very pregnant and was leaving the grocery store with my cart. Lexi was waiting for me in the car. She loved the car rides when the weather was good. So I was loading up the groceries and realized that a man I had been sitting in a car before I went into the store was still there and was watching me. He got out of his car and asked if I needed assistance. I was very pregnant, so it was the polite thing to do, but something about it immediately put me on alert. I was completely unnerved by him, and I still can't state exactly what it was. I said, "No thanks, I've got it," but he continued to get out of his vehicle and walk toward my car. Lexi had been snuggled up in the front seat and must have heard there was some concern in my voice or something. Duder continued to walk in my direction, claiming he just wanted to help. I continued to say, "No, I don't need help, no worries." As the man approached the hatch of my vehicle, where I was loading the groceries, Lexi sprang up from the front seat, leapt over the back seat, and jumped to the cargo area and started growling and baring her teeth. It was dark, and she was an all-black dog, so she seemingly appeared out of nowhere. That was the only thing that made that dude back up and leave. He started cursing for letting my dog threaten him. I will say, thank goodness it was dark, because Lexi was a cardigan Welsh corgi that was all black and was far less intimidating looking in the daylight. She looked like a black lab puppy, but had super short, stumpy little legs. She stayed right by my ankles the rest of the night once we were home and would not let me out of her sight. I was about 10 and getting back home from the park with my sister. She, being the stubborn younger, I need no older sister playing mom to me sibling, walked purposefully 20 meters ahead so nobody would even think we were together. She rounds the corner and I hear a blood-curdling scream. I never covered 20 meters so fast in my life. I round the corner, and there's a man holding my sister by her throat, dragging her into an open car parked nearby. When he sees me advancing and yelling incomprehensibly, I honestly don't know what I yelled. I was scared out of my wits. And he realizes there's two of us. He drops her, jumps into the car, and drives off. She had fingerprint-shaped bruises on her throat for days. I was 17 and in New York City. I was going from the hotel to buy some croissants near Times Square. I already knew New York City quite well, so it was normal for me to do this walk through the city. As I was walking, I never realized someone was following me until a cop started rapidly walking toward me from the right, and just as the person following me was about to grab me, the cop grabbed his arm and stopped him. My stomach dropped, and I just kept on walking, letting the cop do his job. It doesn't really give me chills, but it was quite creepy. I was leaving a club with my friend and happened to walk out at the same time as two very drunk young women. They were so drunk that one of them kept saying, "Where's my phone? I've lost my phone," until she realized it was wedged into her top. They started talking to us and I decided to make sure they got home safe. They didn't want to pay for an Uber and wanted to walk home despite not being able to walk or operate their phones. I insisted that they order it and do it for them. I also decided to wait to order mine because they were extremely vulnerable and unwise, probably recently 18. While this is happening, a very sketchy looking dude with a weird look in his eyes comes up to us. He asks us if we want to go to an afterparty and mentions his Uber is on the way. I politely refuse for all of us, and he kinda hangs around looking at the girls and looking toward the entrance of the club. His Uber, van-style people carrier with a sliding door, pulls up. He opens the door and says nothing to the driver. She suggests we come to the party again, waits for an uncomfortable amount of time, and realizes we are not going to come. Closes the Uber door without saying anything to the driver, and the Uber driver, he drives off, then makes his way back up to the club. He was in the club that night and probably followed the women out, but unfortunately for him, they got talking to me. I mean, you never really know, but from what you described, it sounds like they were about to get trafficked. So, yeah, maybe you were a kind of guardian angel to them. Good on you. I, female, enjoy a beer at a bar by myself from time to time. Either to just be alone or maybe chat with the bartender if they're feeling social. Occasionally, I'll get some unwanted attention, but usually a casual mention of my boyfriend gets folks to buzz off without issue. One time, I was at a little dive bar by my house. A guy sat next to me and started chatting with me. Friendly stuff, nothing too forward. I didn't even catch his name. Then he goes, "You live at blank my address, yes? Unit number 1 on the corner?" I lived in an apartment complex. My unit was indeed number 1 on the corner. I'd never seen this man before. I got us thinking this isn't good feeling. No, I replied, I'm sorry, you must have mistaken me for someone else. His demeanor changed immediately. He twisted toward me with this really annoyed look. He responded, No, I see you. I always see you. You live there. His tone was this weird mix of frustrated and offended. He was just glaring at me, waiting for me to respond. Insert the I'm in danger Ralph meme. I bumbled out, Nope, don't live there, one more time, paid my bill and bounced. I was nervous to go home, so I went to a friend's who gave me some pepper spray just in case. Not like I would be effective using it, but hey, it was something. Thankfully, I never saw him again. I moved out of that apartment soon after, which I was already considering, but this gave me the push. My guess or hope was that he lived nearby and just lacked social skills, but the way he said, I always see you, still gives me chills. I was about 10 when my family was staying at a cabin in the mountains in the winter. It was a snowy night and my parents and aunt and uncle had all gone to their bedrooms to sleep. My siblings, cousin, and I were all sleeping in the living room. At some point I was awakened by a chilly draft. When I opened my eyes, I saw the front door was slightly cracked and there was a man making eye contact with me. In the middle of the night, in the freezing cold, on the deck of a cabin that was way up in the mountain, far removed from town, I screamed for my dad. The man disappeared into the darkness. My dad quickly came to the living room and turned on the porch lights. The man was just standing in the driveway, silently looking back at us. He claimed he was just looking for a drink of water. This was in San Jose, California. I worked at a car dealership and a lady came in to look at a truck. She was going to pay cash. She was wearing expensive jewelry but acted very strange. The whole time I was trying to figure out if she was on drugs, I ultimately decided I wasn't comfortable going on a test drive with her. We were close to closing anyway. There was just something off, so I closed up shop and watched as she wandered through the car lot looking at cars. The next day I see her mugshot on TV. She had bludgeoned to death an older lady with a hammer in the lady's home and robbed her. She committed this crime the night before visiting our dealership, so the jewelry she was wearing, purchasing her getaway car, I can't help but feel I got out of that situation with my life. So glad I trusted my gut on that one.